Good day, everyone. So we are the Group 3 and we are here to present COLREG Rule number 8, 9, and 10. So we have the members of Cabanday Jake, Cabanes Christopher Jan, Calfoforo Romard Jay, and Catapal Vrick. So by the way, what is COLREG 72? So COLREG 72 is the International Regulation for Preventing Collision at Sea 1972 that are published by the International Maritime Organization or IMO and set out, among other things, the rules of the road or navigation rules to be followed by ships and other vessels at sea to prevent collision between two or more vessels. Next. So, Rule 8, Action to Avoid Collision. So, Rule 8, Section A states that any action to avoid collision shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be positive, made in ample time, and with due regard to the observance of the good seamanship. So, when is action to be considered as positive? It is considered to be positive when the action of the giver vessel does not create any doubt on the stand-on vessel, and when the giver vessel does not create a conflicting situation with the stand-on vessel. And also, when the giver vessels communicates her intention clearly and appropriately by means of sound signals or VHF. So in ample time, so that the stand-on vessel should have no doubt as to the intention of the giver vessel. And those small vessels like yacht, fishing vessels, must not wait until the last minute to maneuver in order to admire the passing ship. And also, those larger ships may not think that they always have the right way. Deep draught vessels may, however, make an assumption. And also, should have an ample time because it will create an enough time to assess the situation clearly and so that the OOW can gather enough information. So Rule 8, Section B, any alteration of course and or speed to avoid collision shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be large enough to be readily apparent to the another vessels observing visually or by radar. A succession of small alteration of course and or speed should be avoided. So it should be on a safe distance in order for the ship to be easily alter her course or speed. And it should be made in ample time and be substantial. So in other words, in time to be able to properly assess the situation and to have a sufficient time to think and be large enough to be readily apparent until the other vessel is finally passed and clear. Next slide, please. So Rule 8, Section C, if there is a sufficient sea room, alteration of course alone may be the most effective action to avoid a close quarter situation, provided that it's made in good time, is substantial, and does not result in another close quarter situation. So alteration of course alone is usually the most effective action to avoid a close quarter situation, provided that those mentioned on Section C is applied. Rule 8, Section D states that action taken to avoid collision with another vessel shall be such as to result in a passing at a safe distance. The effectiveness of the action shall be carefully checked until the other vessel is finally passed and clear. So what do you mean by passing at the safe distance? So passing in a safe distance in open sea with good visibility is just for about 1 mile or more can generally be considered as a safe distance. But at night, 1 mile may out be sufficient. And in restricted visibility, when observing by radar, the closest point of approach or CPA should be between 2 and 3 miles. Next, please. Rule 8, Section E states that if necessary to avoid collision or allow more time to assess the situation, a vessel shall slacken her speed or take all way off by stopping or reversing her means of propulsion. So, to reduce the speed of the vessel, the ship must reduce the number of revolution of propeller, stop the engines, and reverse the means of propulsion. Because slacking your speed or reversing your propulsion have an advantage. One advantage of it is it will create more time to assess the situation You will also have a better chances of maneuvering, and in case of collision, it will create a less damage. And Rule 8, Section F, Part 1, a vessel which by any of these rules is required not to impede the passage of a safe passage of another vessel shall, when required by the circumstances of the case, take early action to allow sufficient room for the safe passage of the other vessel. So not to impede the passage means that a vessel shall not hamper or hinder or obstruct the passage of another vessels, because some vessels like vessels proceeding in a narrow channel, sailing vessels, fishing vessels, deep dock vessels, etc., often cannot maneuver at liberty or take avoiding action, and hence they should not be impeded in their activity or in their conditional status. Rule 8, Section F, Part 2 states that a vessel required not to be impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel is not relieved of this obligation. If approaching the other vessel so as to involve risk of collision, and shall, when taking action, have full regard to the action which may be required by the rules of this part. So, if the risk of collision have developed between a not to impede vessel and another vessel that's not to impede, vessel will automatically become a stand-on vessel. And the other vessel will, a given vessel, the not to impede vessel will not be relieved of her obligation to keep out of the way, and any stand-on action required to be any other rule will be overridden. Section F, Part 3, a vessel the passage of which is not to be impeded remains the fully obliged to comply with the rules of this part when the two vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collision. So when a not to impede vessel and a not to be impeded vessel have a approach to each other to one another so as to involve risk of collision, the not to be impeded vessel must obey the rules of Part B of the steering and sailing rules, and both vessels are now expected to take action and to make an alteration.
Rule 9, Narrow Channel. Rule 9, Section A. Vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel or fairway shall keep as near to the outer limit of the channel or fairway which lies on her starboard side as is safe and practicable. Just like all cars, it means all vessels approaching to a narrow channel or fairway requires to navigate on the far right side of the narrow channel, whether or not the traffic is approaching from the other direction. Rule 9, Section B. A vessel of less than 20 meters in length or a sailing vessel shall not impede the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within a narrow channel or fairway. This means that all vessels less than 20 meters in length or a fishing vessels are not allowed to get in the way of any other vessels and shall take early action that's sufficient for safe passage. Rule 9. Section C. A vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any other vessel navigating within a narrow channel or fairway. It means that vessel engaged in fishing, as defined in Rule 3, that they must stay out of the way, although they are permitted to fish in the channel or fairway. Rule 9, Section D. A vessel shall not cross a narrow channel or fairway if such crossing impedes the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within such channel or fairway. The latter vessel may use the sound signal prescribed in Rule 34, Section D, if in doubt as to the intention of crossing the vessel. All vessels are prohibited to cross a narrow channel or fairway in a way that could impede a vessel that could not safely operate outside of the channel or fairway. If a vessel do not understand the intention or in doubt, shall use the prescribed sound signal in Rule 34, Section D, which is 5 short blast. Rule 9, Section E, Part 1. In a narrow channel or fairway, when overtaking can take place only if the vessel to be overtaken has to take action to permit safe passing. The vessel intending to overtake shall indicate her intention by sounding the appropriate signal prescribed in Rule 34, Section C, Part 1. The vessel to overtaken shall, if in agreement, sound the appropriate signal prescribed in Rule 34, Section C, Part 2, and take the steps to permit safe passing. If in doubt, she may sound the signal prescribed in Rule 34, Section D. For example, if a vessel wants to overtake on her starboard side, she may make the prescribed sound signal in Rule 34, Section C, Part 1, which is 2 prolonged blasts plus 1 short blast. But if the vessels intended to overtake on her port side, she would make the prescribed sound signal 2 prolonged blasts plus 2 short blasts. As an agreement to the other vessel, will make the prescribed sound signal, which is prolonged blast, short blast, prolonged blast, and short blast, for confirmed. Rule 9, Section E, Part 2. This rule does not relieve the overtaking vessel of her obligations under Rule 13. Rule 13 says that the overtaking vessel is the giveway vessel and remains the giveway vessel until she is fully passed and clear of the ship vessel, of the other vessel. So Rule 9, Section F. A vessel nearing a bend or an area of a narrow channel or fairway where other vessel may be obscured by an intervening obstruction shall navigate with particular alertness and caution and shall sound the appropriate signal prescribed in Rule 34, Section E. Meaning, a vessel approaching a 90-degree bend in a fairway or narrow channel and obscured around the corner with a far west shall make the prescribed sound signal in Rule 34, Section E, which is 1 prolonged blast to indicate any other vessel around the corner that she is approaching. But if there was another vessel approaching the bend opposite to the direction and heard the prolonged blast, they would answer in return with their own prolonged blast prescribed in Rule 34, Section E. Rule 9, Section G. Any vessel shall, if the circumstances of this case admit, avoid anchoring in a narrow channel. Anchoring in a narrow channel is obviously not a good practice as prohibited in this rule. But, however, if the circumstances of the case admit, refers us back to Rule 2, where it is possible at all times to make up a departure in case of emergency.
Rule 10. Traffic Separation Scheme. Rule 10, Section A. These rules apply to traffic separation scheme adopted by the organization and does not relieve any vessel of her obligation under any other rule. Rule 10, Section B. A vessel using a traffic separation scheme shall. Rule 10, Section B, Part 1. Proceed in the appropriate traffic lane in the general direction of traffic flow for that lane. Rule 10, Section B, Part 2. So far as practicable, keep clear of a traffic separation line or separation zone. Next break. Next. Rule 10, Section B, Part 3. Normally join or leave a traffic lane or or leave a traffic lane from either side shall hold to the general direction of traffic flow as practicable. Rule 10, Section C. A vessel shall, so far as practicable, avoid crossing traffic lane but if obliged applicable at right angle to the general direction of traffic flow. If obliged gigani ka nga mo kuan, mo avoid sa crossing lane kay pwede ra if right angle to the general direction of traffic flow. Next break. Rule 10, Section D, Part 1. A vessel shall not use uninsured traffic zone when she can simply use the appropriate traffic lane with the adjacent traffic separation scheme. However, vessel of less than 20 meters length, sailing vessel, and vessel engaged in fishing may use the insured traffic zone. Rule 10, Section B, Part 2. Notwithstanding subparagraph Rule 10, Section D, Part 1, a vessel may use uninsured traffic zone when an route to or from a port, offshore installation or structure, pilot station, or any other place situated within the insured traffic zone or to avoid immediate danger.
Rule 10, Section E. A vessel other than a crossing vessel or a vessel joining or leaving a lane
Next break.
shall not normally enter a separation zone or cross a separation line except number one, in case of emergency, to avoid immediate danger. Number two, to engage in fishing within a separation zone. So this goes back to the first paragraph where it says vessels need normally keep clear of separation lane and separation zones. Rule 10, Section F. A vessel navigating in areas near the terminations of traffic separation scheme shall do so with particular cautions. As you can see in the picture, where the green vessel is heading vessels are coming in and out of the traffic separation scheme, is going to be busy. You need to navigate with particular caution. Rule 10, Section G. A vessel shall so far as practicable avoid anchoring in a traffic separation scheme or in areas near terminations. Again, that makes sense. Don't anchor in that area where there is a TTS, where there is a TSS, because that area is busy. That's all for today. Have a nice day. Thank you, everyone.